Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Couchbrotatopodcast. It's October, and you know what that means, right? It's Halloween season, and to commemorate the occasion, we are bringing to you 5 episodes devoted to some of our favorite horror movies, whether it's vampires or anthology movies, slashers, or in today's episode, serial killers. That's right. We are coming to you with the 1995 David Fincher classic Se7en, and I got a special guest to come on the show and join me, Stephen, who hasn't been on the show in quite a while. I think the last time he was on the show was our Saturday Night Live episode, which that was quite a while ago. So he is long overdue for a visit on the couch, and he's been more than happy to come on and talk a little Se7en with us today. So, after the trailer, the Couch Potato Podcast presents to you Se7en.
Do you like what you do for a living? These things you see?
You have to wear blinders sometimes. Most times.
Detective William Somerset is looking for a way out.
You're retiring. 6 more days and you're all the way gone.
So how long have you lived here?
Too long.
Detective David Mills is looking for a way in.
We'll be spending every waking hour together from now until the time I leave. I'll show you who your friends and enemies are.
Look, I've worked homicide 5 years. Not here.
Now,
Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a homicide.
they're caught in a game.
No fingerprints and no witnesses of any kind.
Nope.
About the only thing we know about that guy right now is he's totally insane.
Where the price of sin is death.
There are 7 deadly sins. Gluttony,
You're going to come take a look at this.
greed,
No one touches anything.
sloth, wrath, pride, lust, and envy. 7. You can expect 5 more of these.
Body was found on Tuesday morning.
I hate this city.
We're gonna get who did this.
This will be the very definition of swift justice.
There are 2 more bodies, 2 more victims.
This guy's methodical, exacting, and worst of all, patient.
He's laughing at us.
He had a gun.
He's 2 murders away from completing his masterpiece.
Let's finish it.
Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No.
Se7en.
All right, we got Stephen joining us on the program today. Stephen, it's been a while, man, since you've been on the show. How you been?
Good, man. Yeah. Getting ready for the cold weather, but other than that, doing good. Busy with kids in school and all this stuff. I'm sure you are too.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Actually, right before we recorded, my 4-year-old decided she doesn't want to go to bed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the theme of this month, and we're doing a string of horror-themed classics. So I guess pretty much like any parents, one of their worst nightmares on a day-to-day basis is the grumpy child in the morning. So I guess that'll be my horror story for tomorrow morning.
Yeah. I'm dealing with I have a 13-year-old son who everything becomes a big deal. I feel like every day. So I'm feeling that, like, not kind of grown out of like the young kid stuff. And I'm like entering this, all the teenage angst that I remember giving my parents.
I'm starting to dip my toes in that myself, where it's they know everything and you don't.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you're embarrassing to be around. Maybe not. I don't know if that's how your son is. But yeah, my son sometimes is kind of Like cringe
Yeah,
dad.
I
I want to be with
noticed
my friends.
Yeah, we were at the grocery store. Hudson walks several feet away from me, as if to say, I'm not with him. And I'm like, I think I'm pretty freaking cool, man.
So do I. I haven't gotten that yet, but I'm sure that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like sometimes like I miss them being like they're dependent on you for everything, and you're like the coolest person in the world, and like all they want to do is be with, you know, dad, and it's like, okay, that's slowly getting away.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're a shithead.
Yeah. But I also don't mind, you know, like if he wants something, he can just get up and get it himself. And I don't have to make sure he doesn't set the fucking kitchen on fire trying to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is nice, that not having to, every time they need something, you have to be involved. That is nice.
Yeah.
That sense of independence.
Yeah. Well, getting back on track. But yeah, we're doing a series of horror movies. No rhyme or reason, just stuff that is kind of on the bleak side, whether it's like slasher movies, vampire movies, whatever. We got a cool lineup set up for you guys and gals this month. But I kind of wanted to lead off with one of my favorite movies. And one of the reasons I brought you on is I think the director of this film, David Fincher, is one of our favorite directors. We absolutely adore his work. And this is his second feature film. We're doing Se7en today. And so I wanted to ask you first, when was the first time you got a chance to check this movie out?
So I honestly, I don't remember seeing this in its theatrical run. I think I was a freshman in high school when it came out.
You might have been in middle school then, because I think I was 95. Okay. I would have been like maybe a sophomore. So you might have been seventh grade.
Then yeah, that timing sounds right. So yeah, maybe 8th grade, something like that. But I remember not seeing it in the theatrical run, but watching it when my dad rented it at a Blockbuster or something after it had come out. And I remember absolutely loving it. Even as, you know, at the time I was probably more into young adult related movies. And then, but I remember really enjoying this one.
I know when I had seen it, fun fact about this movie is this movie came out the same weekend as Showgirls, which is the notorious NC-17 rated bomb from Paul Verhoeven. And this movie kind of flew under the radar for me. I had never really heard. I'd seen like a couple trailers, kind of swept it under the rug. No big deal. And our local movie theater, you had to be 17 years old to see Showgirls. So me, I've probably talked about him a time or two on the show. My best friend in high school, Jeff, and another friend, we decided we were going to go see Showgirls. And they were not letting us in. And to even get in the door, you had to show a ticket stub with Showgirls on it. Well, my buddy had, we had bought tickets for Se7en because it was showing at the same time. So we're like, all right, we're going to buy tickets for Se7en, sneak in and watch Showgirls. My buddy knew the usher that was standing at the door, and he said, hey, I can let you in, but that's it. So my buddy and I got stuck watching Se7en. And I was just blown away by what I had seen in the theater. I'm like when the credits started rolling, I was left like, what was that? That was phenomenal.
Yeah. No, and I love how you got saved by Showgirls, but I can imagine the disappointment as a young boy wanting to see Showgirls. But
I mean, I wanted to see Jesse Spano do a lap dance for Mr. Belding.
Yeah. I remember that was a big allure to me. Like I had just associated the actress with her character. Like that just must be her. She must be an activist person and really, and then like, I think the fact I remember seeing a Rolling Stone at the time did a huge, promotional spread on it. And I couldn't believe that this movie was coming out. I remember I really wanted to see Showgirls.
Yeah. And I was like kind of bummed out. Like I was going to have to sit and watch this movie Se7en. And I remember it let out around the same time as Showgirls, and my buddy was talking about how great, he goes, Showgirls was awesome. Like, so much nudity and, being like a horny 14, 15-year-old kid, that's like all you're thinking about. But my buddy and I are like, dude, like, no, there's no way that Showgirls was better than what we just got out of. Yeah. And when I walked out of there, I know for a fact I'd never seen anything that bleak and that dark in tone, at least for something mainstream. And this was around the time I really started becoming like a movie fan. And I honestly, I think for a mainstream Hollywood film, I don't think there's anything that's came out since then that is this just dark and just bleak, like just has this shitty view of the world and society. Yep.
Yeah. It ends dark, ends real dark.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you, man.
But, yeah, I think it's a fantastic movie. I would say if I were to come up with a list of the 20 essential movies that kind of define my taste in movies, this would definitely be on that list.
Yeah, no, I think so for me too, as well.
And I think,
there's probably, oh my gosh, there's probably 3 movies from Fincher that would be on my list like that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I probably got this, Fight Club, and I would probably put Zodiac. Zodiac is like, I think if you're doing a double feature and you really want to just be like put into a fucking shit mood on how the world is, watch this and Zodiac back to back.
Sure.
Yeah, Zodiac's amazing too. Yeah, this movie is about serial killers. I wanted to ask you, like, I don't really have an opinion of this. I think it's the fact that sometimes people are fascinated with like the unknown, like how these particular people's minds work. But I just want to ask you, like, what do you think America's fascination is with serial killers? Because it seems like the last 25, 30 years, like the popularity of people that just do these kind of killings is just like, they have like their own cult following. And I just want to know, like, what do you think about that?
I've noticed that. I haven't really, it's not a big thing I'm into myself. But I guess I can understand the allure of it. I think it's, for me, I think some of the lore of it for me is just like, just the macabre piece of it. But then it's like, man, you think about, these are human beings doing it to other human beings, right? It's almost like a part of you puts yourself like, man, could I ever do something like that? Or what would have to be going through my head to be able to do that to other people? And I think that, like, it just causes a lot of curiosity in people, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've just always like wondered like what people's fascination is with it. And like, I think, especially now with like Netflix and like streaming, it's just like, it seems like it's kind of taken off even further. I mean, I even see memes now, and I just find them funny all the time. You see like, like, I'm scared to death to go to work, but I'll stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning watching like serial killer documentaries on Netflix. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like shit like that. Like, okay. But yeah, I've always kind of wondered like what the fascination is with it. And I think a lot of it has to do like starting out with like, the only serial killer that I can recall is Ted Bundy. I'm sure there's been a couple other ones, but like the big notorious ones, not too familiar with. But when I was a kid, Ted Bundy was a thing. And I remember being kind of scared that like Ted Bundy was going to get me.
Sure.
He was like clear down in Florida, but that seemed to be kind of taking on its mind of its own. And then like, I don't know. That's a subculture that like, I don't really understand. I think our next episode, I might bring that up to our guest. This person is a lover of, just not a lover, but she's fascinated with serial killers, and she's very, very knowledgeable on the subject. So I think next episode I'm going to broach that topic with her so I can kind of dig in a little further. But
yeah, I'd be curious to listen. That is interesting to see why people are just so drawn into that.
Right. So yeah, something next week we will get the answers to that question. But last thing before we get into the categories is I was looking at the 1995 Best Picture nominees for this year, and it was Sense and Sensibility, Il Postino, Babe, Apollo 13, and Braveheart. Those were the five considered to be the five best movies in 1995. But when I was digging in a little further into some of the movies that came out in 95, I'm beginning to think now that I think none of those movies deserve to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture.
Yeah.
Some of the movies that were not released in 1995 is Robert De Niro, personal favorite of mine, had two. I consider one to be an iconic movie of the last 25 years. One, not quite, but still a fantastic film nonetheless. He had Casino in November, and then Heat came out in December.
Okay, yeah.
Those two movies definitely are better than anything that got nominated for Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
The Usual Suspects, Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro, Kevin Pollak, a fantastic movie. Didn't get an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. This movie, Se7en, not nominated for a Best Picture. Now, I find Se7en and Heat especially are kind of game changers in the kind of the crime mystery genre of Se7en, and then Heat has been kind of ripped off numerous times with the heist movie. I just found it to be a very interesting, I guess, look back at sometimes the best movies aren't always the ones that get Best Picture nominations, and sometimes the Academy gets it wrong a lot.
Right. Yeah. It kind of gives you an idea of kind of the decision makers, I guess, the mindset of what they considered to be the good movies of that time.
Yeah. Well, 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis. That's a great movie. I would find it to be a nominee over anything came out. Apollo 13, I'll say, is probably the most deserving. I don't know. I'm just not as big of a Braveheart fan as I used to be.
Okay.
I don't know if you've watched Braveheart recently. I don't know. I find it, besides the battle scenes, be kind of boring.
Sure. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that. I guess I wouldn't put that. I guess if I had to choose a favorite Mel Gibson war movie, it'd have to be The Patriot over Braveheart for me.
The Patriot's a fun movie. It's historically incorrect as fuck. I would not recommend showing that as to high school students at all. Hey, this is what happened in a Revolutionary War, but it's a fucking fun movie.
Yeah.
I always say it's the battle between Braveheart and Gladiator. There seem to be the two sword and sandals, the peak of that genre, and I prefer Gladiator over Braveheart.
Yeah, no, I would too.
Yeah, I'm just going down this list here of movies that came out. Clueless came out in 95.
Wow, that was in 95. Okay, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I would say Clueless is better than anything I got.
My recollection of that, it feels like it's earlier, but yeah, I guess that would be 95, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a better movie than anything I got nominated. Crimson Tide's another one. I mean, I can just go down. I can find a bunch of Dead Presidents is a good one.
Oh yeah.
Let me get just a couple more here. Father of the Bride Part 2. That joke completely failed. But yeah, man, I'm just looking at this. Get Shorty's another good one. But yeah, I was looking 95 was a banger of a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this list now. I feel like it's been a while since this many movies I enjoyed came out, and I feel like a long time ago a year would produce a lot of movies I enjoyed, and then that has not been the case, I would say, in recent years.
I think that the 70s, 80s, and 90s are the three best decades for film.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think anything since 99, there's been years that have been really good, but it hasn't been consistently good.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally think like the 2010s, for as long as I've been a fan of movies that I can remember, 2010s is probably the worst decade so far for movies. Because I can't think of like, I can maybe name 10 movies from the decade that I think are really good and like essential viewing that I could go back and rewatch over and over again. But there's not a lot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
But, yeah, I think Seven should have totally gotten a Best Picture nomination for this, just because of how much it changed the genre. It's like it got so many like copycat, that grimy, gritty, like serial killer thriller type movie, and none of them.
No. Oh, sorry, man. Go ahead.
None of them ever got to the heights of Seven. And yeah, I don't know. It's probably personal bias, but yeah, I mean, it being one of my favorite movies of this decade, it just, I don't know. Like, I have of the belief that I think the Academy like should go back every 5 years and revisit like the Best Picture winners, and if the movie doesn't hold up well, they can take it back. I'm sure they would take back Braveheart because Mel Gibson is kind of a racist piece of shit, but.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's just probably, just the dark and grittiness of it was probably, made it to be the case where it wasn't even considered, even though I feel like from a story standpoint and I think it definitely deserved to be nominated that year. Totally
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the categories. I introduced a couple of new categories. I seem to like fuck with these categories a lot. I change the names of them. Like one of these days, I'll get a set name and a set like template of categories. But sometimes I'll be up late at night. I can't sleep or something like that. Will pop in my head like, oh, that'd be kind of a cool category. So bear with me. These keep changing all the time. But the first category is we call this the WTF. Is this all about? This is kind of a brief synopsis of the movie. For those of you that have not seen it, which I don't know what you're waiting on, it's fantastic. Seven is about two detectives, one a rookie and one a veteran, 1 week away from retirement, hunting down a serial killer that uses the 7 deadly sins as his motive. All right, sold right there. Like that's, if I'm a movie executive and you're pitching me a movie, like, okay, I'm in. Who do you got in mind to be in this? The Tale of the Tape. This was released on September the 22nd, 1995, along with Showgirls. If you want, I know we said something about a Seven and Zodiac double feature. If you want to do a Zodiac Showgirls double feature, don't recommend it because it really doesn't make any sense. But if you want to do a Seven and Showgirls double feature, hey, have at it. Reminisce about the year 1995. This movie stars Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, R. Lee Ermey, John C. McGinley, and Kevin Spacey, who goes uncredited in this movie. Yeah, when you see the opening credits, he's not in it. And when we get into the fun facts about the movie, I'll tell you why. Directed by David Fincher, Rotten Tomatoes score of 83% from critics and 95% from audiences. This made $327 million worldwide on a $34 million budget. Was nominated for Best Film Editing, but lost to Walter Murch for The English Patient. That doesn't make any sense, but okay. I think Wikipedia led me astray. I'll have to look at that again. And you can watch this movie on Paramount Plus. So if you have a Paramount Plus subscription, go ahead and fire it up after you listen to us.
Oh, yeah, definitely you should. If you haven't seen it, absolutely watch it now.
But this category is Did You Know? These are fun facts regarding the behind-the-scenes making of the movie. And as we touched on, Kevin Spacey's name isn't in the opening credits. And they wanted to do that intentionally so when he's revealed to be John Doe, the killer, it comes as like a big surprise.
Okay.
And I guess it's like a narrative thing. Like they kind of wanted audiences to go along with Mills and Somerset. That's Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman's characters. They wanted the audience to be along for the ride, so they discover who the killer is when the detectives do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, yeah.
And this is like probably 2 or 3 months after he had done The Usual Suspects, which he was starting to gain like a pretty substantial Oscar buzz too.
Okay. So yeah, his name associated with it. Yeah, people would have put that together pretty.
Yeah, and then if you see Kevin Spacey and you haven't seen him within the first 20 minutes of the movie, you're kind of like, okay, he's got to be the killer.
Yeah, you got to put that together.
And I think it doing that would kind of deflate the movie a little bit.
Oh no, yeah, I totally agree. I think so much more impactful that way. Where you like discover like him when he yells in the at the precinct or whatever. Yeah, that's such an amazing scene. And then when you see the actor, it's kind of like in Interstellar. If they had Matt Damon's name in it, and then he's not in the movie yet. You're gonna figure something is going on with his character.
I'm pretty sure Matt Damon's uncredited in Interstellar too, because I don't remember seeing his name in the credits at all, at least in the opening credits.
Yeah. I think that's yeah.
But I thought that was kind of a cool narrative, and like now, like, geez, when like after you watch the movie, it kind of, and by the time this movie hits home video, Kevin Spacey is pretty much an Oscar nominee at this point. I don't remember when this movie came out on home video, but it would have been close to the time the Oscars were coming. Like they're giving out the Oscars, so it would have been close to when he won for Kaiser Soze. Damn it, what a fucking run that is! In like 3 months, you do Kaiser Soze and John Doe.
Yeah. And then you have like 2 movies where you have 2 of these fantastic reveals in them. Those 2 amazing scenes.
Speaking of runs, I was just checking out like some of the like Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, like what they had made coming into this. Morgan Freeman had did Unforgiven, which is probably most people would consider to be one of the greatest Westerns of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Multi Oscar winner. He had did Outbreak, which would have really hit home in 2020 versus 93.
Yeah.
He did The Shawshank Redemption, and then he did Seven.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman throwing heat. This was David Fincher's second directorial feature. He had did Alien 3. And prior to doing Alien 3, he was more known as a music video director and commercials. And I didn't know it, but he did Madonna's Vogue video. And he did George Michael's Freedom video too. So
I think I knew the Vogue video. I don't think I knew the Freedom video. That's cool to know though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you ever get a chance to read it, but apparently he had a lot of problems on the set of Alien 3. He was getting a lot of interference from 20th Century Fox to where after Alien 3 was done, he didn't want to do another feature film. He said in a quote, "I would rather die from colon cancer than do another feature-length movie."
Oh, man, that's so incredible to hear that, especially how his style that he's been able to he's such an accomplished filmmaker to hear him that come out of his note. He said that. So interesting.
It was not a very good experience at all. And I guess like they tried to blame Fox blamed a lot of the problems from Alien 3, which I don't know if you've seen Alien 3 or people that listen to this. Alien 3 is not a good movie. I think it's the worst in that franchise, and that movie has some turds. But Alien 3 is probably the biggest turd of all of them. But
yeah, I don't. It's been so long since I've seen it. I don't remember it all. But I kind of feel like I should rewatch it again just to rediscover it.
well, I remember when it came out in theaters, I was super excited because I love Alien and Aliens. Those are like in terms of horror and like sci-fi, those are right up there with Star Wars. And like my buddy Jeff, I'm like, fuck, Alien 3, we gotta go see it. And like when I got out of that, it's like, that movie fucking sucked. I was so disappointed when that movie came out. I was like, I was hesitant on seeing anything Alien after that because of the stink of Alien 3.
Oh man!
Of course, like a sucker though. When the fourth one came out with Sigourney Weaver, of course, like an idiot, I went and seen it opening day and was just as disappointed. But yeah, like when I bring up, he didn't want to do another movie. The screenwriter for Seven, Andrew Kevin Walter, had sent Fincher the script on accident, and Fincher read it and he decided like if he's going to do another movie, he was going to do this one. So,
oh man,
yeah.
What a weird twist of fate. That's so cool.
Yeah, but yeah, he got the script on accident and like decided to he was going to go ahead and do it. So yeah, thanks Post Office for getting that to the wrong person.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
I thought this was a bit of interesting news. Before Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt were cast as William Somerset and David Mills, respectively, Al Pacino was considered for the Somerset role and Denzel Washington for David Mills.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I guess Pacino didn't do it because he was doing the movie City Hall, which, yeah, that was an awesome choice. But Denzel decided to pass on it because the material was too dark. He just it was too much for him, so he passed on it. And then
interesting.
And then later interviews, they both regret not taking the offers.
Yeah,
I think them two it's a completely.
We need to figure out who we know that does a good Denzel impression because now I want to hear lines from Seven done in an impression of Denzel Washington just to hear what it would sound like.
I think this is a completely different movie. I think what makes it work so well is I think Al Pacino would have been a little too showy in his performance. I think Brad Pitt gets kind of like the showy part. He gets to kind of gets to show a lot more emotion in this. Whereas Morgan Freeman's kind of like the center of the movie. He's the person that keeps everyone grounded and like he's kind of the calm, collected person. I don't think it works with Pacino.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think, especially at the time, people would want to see in a role like that, a subdued role like that anyway,
Yeah, and this is Pacino still got it. He still has his fastball, but if I'm using like a baseball analogy, he's probably a guy that used to throw 98, now he's throwing like 91. He still get batters out, but he's not the Al Pacino from the 70s.
Sure.
He's still up there, but like, cause he comes out with Heat like a couple months later, and with Heat, fantastic movie. Like I will rant and rave about that one all day. But then like, I think that's the peak of his later career. And then he's not doing shit like Jack and Jill, which he would do later on. But yeah, I think Denzel could have pulled off Mills, but Pacino's not doing Somerset at all.
Sure, yeah. No,
I think if you totally flipped them around and made Mills the older cop, I think that might have worked a little better. But I think they did okay with who they got.
No, yeah, I'm so especially hearing that. That'd be. I'm glad casting fell the way it did.
Mm-hmm. The diner, which Somerset and Tracy, David Mills' wife, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, that is the same diner used in Training Day where Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke meet for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a famous. It's the Quality Coffee Shop in LA.
Okay.
I'm sure you may have. I don't know. You probably heard of it. It's been used in a lot of movies and stuff.
Yeah, it's not a working diner, right?
I don't think it is.
It's just a set. Yeah, it's just a set. That'd be a cool thing to own. Have that, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Brad Pitt was injured in the foot chase sequence where he's chasing after John Doe. He put his arm through a windshield. And if you notice after that happens, he's got his hand wrapped up in a cast. That was an actual legitimate injury. They just wrote it into the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. The notebooks that they find in John Doe's apartment, those took over 2 months to write. And they're actually real notebooks, and it cost $15,000 to pay people to write those.
I remember seeing that movie. Not initially, I didn't think this through, but being older and thinking that, I was like, somebody like actually wrote this. Somebody wrote pages of this, and I thought that was an interesting detail, dedication to the movie, to take the time to write that out.
Let me ask you this. When you see those notebooks now, because I still see them in grocery stores and places that sell stationery, when you see those now, do you have the same feeling that I do? Like, I always think of those as the 7 notebooks.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I see them, I was like, those are the 7 notebooks. A couple of years ago, my son got some of those for, I think, he's in, 5th grade. I'm trying to think of when it was. I said that. I was like, oh, yeah, he's got the 7 notebooks.
Yeah, I think that's a cool little tidbit about that. Cool little fact that they hired, probably a company to just have a bunch of designers come in, and man, I'm sure they even talked about like what the
what their
handwriting would need to look like and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was a really cool process to put those together.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool, and I guess like going back to like the notebooks. The opening credit sequence is supposed to be like if a serial killer was constructing the opening montage scene.
Oh, that's a really cool. I remember watching that and not remember seeing a opening scene like that. Yeah, I remember thinking that was a really cool opening scene. Like, it had me. From that moment, I was like, "Holy crap!" I'm like. I'm already open to the story.
Yeah, and it seems it's kind of, I don't know, kind of commonplace in movies now, but like at the time, I had never seen anything like that before. Like, it's usually like, I know in the 70s, they would pretty much give you like all the credits at the beginning of the movie. You would see who the fucking like assistant to the assistant key grip was and who did catering and shit, like during the first 5 minutes of the movie. And then like it kind of gradually, you just got like the main shit, and then, and I was like, those are like where they have like the really cool opening montage sequence, or just the cold open. You just get right into the movie, and like it just has like the name of the movie, and then that's it. You don't know who the fuck is in this, who directed it, who wrote it, whatever, until the end.
Yeah,
those are the 2 best ways to open a movie in my eyes.
Yep. No, totally agree with you.
The last one that I got is New Line Cinema, the company that produced this movie. They wanted to change the ending. They wanted Tracy to live, which I know that's a spoiler. However, this movie came out in 1995. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know what to tell you. You've had plenty of time. It's been on fucking VHS, for crying out loud. You have VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, you can fucking stream it now. You've had plenty of opportunities in many different formats to watch this. But they wanted Tracy to survive. As a matter of fact, one of the proposed endings was John Doe is holding her hostage, and Pitt and Freeman run to save the day.
Yeah.
And
I can see studios wanting it to end that way.
Yeah, they wanted the happier ending. And Pitt, Freeman, and Fincher, I guess, if New Line changed the ending, they were going to walk off the movie.
Good.
They wanted to keep the original ending. And I know I had read that the ending was kind of what drew Fincher and Pitt to the project. Was this doesn't end on a happy note.
Yeah.
And they compromised it. Originally, it was supposed to be Pitt shoots John Doe and then it just cuts to black. That's it. Which that was the original ending. And then they added the Freeman like voiceover at the end about, the world's a a great place worth saving, something like that. And he says, I agree with the second part of it.
I agree with the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of compromise. And I guess to this day, Fincher and Pitt hate that. They just wanted it to end.
That they added, they just wanted it to end there. Yeah.
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 Which I know I watch a lot of my movies through streaming now. Like I buy them on digital. That's one of the things I miss is the director's commentary.
Mm-hmm.
I miss watching movies with that. And I tried to find a version that had like the running commentary where I could put my headphones in and watch it on like YouTube, and I couldn't find it anywhere. This would have been a really cool one to dig into. But yeah, that was the original. They wanted to change the ending of it. And that.
I'm so glad they didn't. That's a thing that always stuck out to me about that movie is like, man, you don't end that movie like feeling good. Like you end it and it's just, you just think about. I think
it would have really just killed the whole, like the movie if it ended that way, because that movie, it's raining all the time. It's never sunny. There might be a couple of quick one-liners in it, but there's no humor in this at all outside of the R. Lee Ermey one-liner. Then when they find the dog at, the final scene, and then the dog is dead and Kevin Spacey's character says, I didn't do that. Like those are the only two bits of humor in it. And I think it's meant to be like, I've always looked at Seven as, I think it's purgatory before you get to hell. Yeah. And then like it's kind of supposed to be the embodiment of that. And then like you're in hell after that. So
yeah. A detail about that. I've always thought interesting. I've never looked it up, but I should to see if there's any meaning or symbolism to it. As you'd mentioned that it's always raining. And I think the only scene it's not raining is at the end when they leave the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even the color palette changes, right? It becomes really orange. And so, yeah, it's really interesting that that stark dynamic between that change in location where the story's taking place.
Yeah, imagine like watching it in a movie theater and it's been like kind of a dark, grim movie the entire time. And then it's like, boom, all of a sudden like, oh, fuck my sunglasses. Yeah. I never really put two and two together with that, but yeah, it's almost like, okay, you're coming towards the end of the road. And, and I think it's supposed to symbolize like, okay, and I think it's supposed to be kind of like a way to throw the audience off, because you're led to believe the whole time, like they're rapid. This is the bow on the end of the story. Like they've got him. He's taking him to the last two victims. This is going to close the case. And then boom, that fantastic fucking twist.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into that here shortly. But yeah, that's all I got for fun facts. I don't know if you had anything you had seen research in the movie. Or...
something I thought was interesting is that John Doe was, I don't want to say almost cast. I think they wanted to cast Ned Beatty.
No,
I don't know if
way.
you saw that. Yeah, they wanted to cast Ned Beatty for John Doe, who's offered the role. I saw, so I don't want to say they almost cast him. I don't think he took it, but yeah, Ned Beatty, and I think it's I saw it was like they felt like he looked like his resemblance to a sketch of the Zodiac Killer or something like that.
Are you Ned Beatty like fucking Deliverance Ned Beatty?
Yeah, Ned Beatty. Yeah.
No way, dude. Like I always like Ned Beatty has been in some great movies. He was in Network. He was in Deliverance. I don't know why I always remember Ned Beatty as Gene Hackman's bumbling sidekick in Superman.
Yeah,
I can never see him in anything else but that.
Him too, yeah. So yeah, just to see him as like in that role, I just couldn't even picture it.
No, like honestly, I don't think they could have cast anybody. Like this movie, like part of the reason why it works so well is Kevin Spacey, like all the shit he's gotten into, and like the stuff we found out about him in recent years, like just strictly on a performance level, like that guy has few peers. At least he had a stretch where like he had very few equals, and he is just. I think you have to have a certain kind of delivery. Like he had to be very cold. And I think he does like cold better than anybody. like not caring about anything. Just, I think he's as good as it gets when it comes to that kind of demeanor. And I think no one else, especially not fucking Ned Beatty.
Yeah. No, totally agree.
You said that, I'm like, you're fucking pulling my chain.
Yeah.
All right. We've, this next category, we've called it a couple different things. We're calling it right now. There is a meme that I've seen where it's Martin Scorsese behind a black backdrop, and it says, "This is cinema." So we're calling this the Martin Scorsese "This is Cinema" award for the best scene of the movie. So wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think's the best scene in this movie?
Oh my gosh. I think a scene that it has always stood out to me just because of it's the scene where the victim for sloth, they get the call, they're in the room, and I think one of the cops is really close to him, and he says something like, "You deserved every point of this," but then they realize he's still alive and he breathes. And then just like, I remember my reaction as a viewer, and then I think everyone's reaction in the scene was really cool. And a cool thing I read about that is, I think, I don't know if this is true, but they read that Fincher didn't tell them that they thought that was a prosthetic. And, and so like everyone, those reactions were genuine, and I think it really helped with that scene.
Yeah, that's John C. McGinley. That's the cop.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that says that. Yeah. So anyway, that's one. I think that whole scene, there's several of them. I think that's one that always stands out to me. I think that's just just the tension in that scene, and just how grotesque the scene is and everything like that. So yeah.
For me, it was really close, but it's between essentially the last 20 minutes of the movie. It's the car ride to where the last victims are at, between Pitt, Freeman, and Spacey. That's just an incredible bit of acting with Spacey, and even Pitt is really good in that too, especially once Spacey's gotten under his skin.
Yeah,
finally. But I mean, for me, I think, because I watched it again this morning, the what's in the box scene, the finale.
Okay, yeah.
That is still man, I was still on edge watching. I was sitting on the edge of my chair watching that this morning. I know what's going to happen. I know everything that happens, and to me, that was still just as shocking as the first time I seen it, when Freeman opens up the box and they don't show it, but it's pretty much alluded to that it's Brad Pitt's pregnant wife's head. And that leads to the phenomenal twist where the last two, I guess, sins that need to be rectified are envy and wrath. And John Doe's character is envy, and Pitt kills him because he's so angry. And I just really like that, because for me, it really becomes when Pitt kind of realizes that this could be his wife. I really like the fact that it goes from being essentially Freeman and Pitt against Spacey, the good guys versus the bad guys. It changes from that dynamic to it's Pitt trying to fight what he should do versus what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And then he eventually, his anger overtakes him, and then he does what he wants to do, which is alluded to in the car ride, and he ends up killing John Doe. And just it's still to this day, there has not been an ending to a movie that has left me just completely speechless like that one has.
Yeah, there's one, I wish I had the ability to erase. There's shows and movies I wish I can erase from my memory to re-experience again, and I would say this is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
That one, like you said, that realization, and then for me, it's it's not implicit, it's not immediate, and what I love about it is it's not until I think Kevin Spacey says it to the character what he's done, the whole time you're is that what's going on? For me anyway, it was is is that what I think it is? It's what's happening. And then when John Doe says it, I remember just that feeling of disbelief. I thought it was a cool moment. And like I said, it's one of those where I wish I can just erase that from my memory so I can re-experience that movie again.
Well, also watching that too, now that you've seen like his career progress the way it has, like that really shows like that's Brad Pitt can act. He's not just a pretty boy. He's fucking bringing it. But I mean, for me, that has to be. I mean, it's the most iconic scene in the movie. It's probably one of the most iconic scenes from any film from the 90s for sure. But I mean, it's fantastic, and it's still like I just found it just as like nail biting. 20 plus years from the first time I'd seen it. And actually, when you see that in a packed movie theater, like I wish you could have that experience. Like the audience was dead fucking silent. Yeah. And usually when you go out of a movie, people are talking, like you usually hear chatter. People are talking about the movie or whatever. I seen it in a pretty packed movie theater and it was dead silent. Everybody walking out. No one said anything.
Yeah.
I think they just they couldn't fucking grasp what they had just seen. And I think that would have been I think it would have hit harder if they would have done what they originally wanted to do. I think the Freeman monologue kind of dilutes it a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit, It's like adding like just a splash of water to like a good scotch.
Sure. Yeah, it makes it a little more palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine if it just cuts to black, and then credits start rolling. You're almost as an audience member, you're like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's just like, just ends.
But yeah, I mean, that would be mine. I mean, but yeah, there's a ton of really cool sequences. I think a few of the murder sequences are kind of like really memorable. I know the one that makes me the most uncomfortable is obviously the sequence with the prostitute and the prosthetic. I to this day, that still makes me cringe. And I was reading when I was doing the research that the actor that they interrogated that did that, Leland Orser, I guess started like breathing in and out real rapidly to get himself in almost an anxiety state to film that scene. And it kind of showed like he looked like he was just on edge and like he was just going to collapse any time. And it was fantastic. But I think it's for me, it'd be between the car ride or the finale, like the final act as the best scenes in the movie. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a wrong answer for that.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many, like, I just think visually, I just love like the crime scenes. It's always, I like watching that and just like pausing it and just kind of looking to see what kind of detail they put into it. There's always just some really cool things to find.
Yeah. The Paul Walker, I said, forget about a award for the most memorable good or bad line of the movie. That award is named after a little bit of dialogue from Paul Walker's magnus opus, Too Fast, Too Furious. When he's walking out of a police station, Tyrese Gibson is asking him, trying to get some information from him, and he says to Tyrese as he's getting into his car, he says, I said, forget about I'll send you the video. But that's what we're calling this award right now. For the most memorable, could be good, could be bad, line of the movie. So what would be your nominee or your pick?
I think the what's in the box is something that's always memorable to me, just the way he says that. And it's something for, I know at work, at an old job I had, it's something we'd reference a lot, like what's in the box every time, something comes, somebody gets a package, you say that, right? And then so for me, and given like just the gravity of what's happening in that scene, like it's not a funny thing, but out of context it sounds funny the way he says it, right? And so I think that's something for me, that's like a memorable thing, just because it's something that we kind of mimic and say a lot,
Yeah, that was mine too, just simply working in the shipping and receiving industry for so long that anytime just fucking around in the warehouse, like you'd see somebody open up a box, you'd always yell at like Brad Pitt, they're like, what's in the box? But watching it last night, I mean, that's my nominee as well. My choice would be What's in the Box. But the one piece of dialogue that really stuck with me when I watched it last night was when they're in the hospital with the drug dealing pedophile. Was that Sloth? The one they find the bed.
Yeah.
They're talking to the doctor, and they're talking about like basically like you shine a flashlight in this guy's eye, he could die. He's not gonna make it. And he was talking about like all the abuse and suffering that he had gone through, and then I forget the exact line, but at the end of it, he says, "And he still has hell to come."
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Still going to hell after this. I was just like, man, that's fucking deep, but it's also true.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is a piece of shit human being that deserves anything that he gets, and he still has suffered for over like a year, and he still has to go to hell. You know, I mean, whether you believe in, religion or not, I mean, it's still like a really, really cool line of dialogue, and it's like, it's like, that's fucking deep.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out to me in that scene is just that's the doctor, right? Like no sense of hope, or almost just apathetic to everything that's happening.
Yeah, it's almost like he's waiting for this guy. Like, okay, like this guy he dies, it just clears up another bed. That's somebody else that I can help. It's like he's just waiting for the end to come for this dude.
I think his attitude aligns with, I think, the people in that world, and that's kind of what I, remember thinking about watching that, especially you see him, a doctor in his white lab coat, and just him to speak that way. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, what's up with the people in this world? Place where it's always going.
Yeah, it's pretty much like that world is pretty much like no one has any hope at all in that world.
Yeah.
I will say a bonus nominee was when Arlie Ermy is at the desk talking to Mills and Somerset, and the phone rings. He picks it up. He goes, "This isn't even my desk," and he hangs it up. But yeah, I think it's got to be What's in the Box, though.
Yeah.
The next award is, sorry, my phone decided to reset to the home screen and it took me out of my notes. The McLovin, we give this award to the scene stealing performer in a supporting role. So, I mean, it can't be the lead. So obviously Pitt and Freeman are out, but it'd be for the best supporting performance in the movie. I personally think there's really nobody else you can give this to. He's in the movie for 20 minutes. It's got to be Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I would say, yeah, absolutely. I would agree, 100% for me too. And then in terms of that scene stealing performance, I think his introduction to the movie was just amazing. And then I think you mentioned his dialogue, where you kind of get to learn about him more.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. Like it is hands down Kevin Spacey for me anyway.
Yeah, well, I got some thoughts on his performance in another category coming up, so I'll table it for that. But I think there's really not a lot to choose from too. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow's not in the movie a lot, so I mean, I guess she could be a nominee. I think she's good, but I mean, she's not. I think her most memorable scene in the movie is she's not seen it. Her head's in the box.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, she does have that really good scene with Somerset in the diner, though. But Arlie Ermy, I mean, he's always kind of a cool person to see pop up in a movie. But I mean, they don't stand out like Spacey does, and that's pretty much about it in terms of people to choose from. You might get John C. McGinley for a minute, but he's only in the movie for like 2 minutes. So yeah, it's got to be Spacey. Next award is the Welcome to Dumpsville Population U Award for the performer that you would most like to recast. I don't think there's anybody in this that I would recast. I think Fincher does. Yeah. Usually he does a really good job of like casting his movies.
Yeah. I don't think there's anyone I feel like I would recast. I feel like there's obviously roles that if you, like Gwyneth Paltrow, her role probably could have been played by a number of any other people, and I feel like it wouldn't have really impacted the movie that much. But yeah, in terms of, I don't feel like there was anyone in the cast where I felt like they really did a bad job casting. I feel like everyone, I think it was cast really well.
Well, I think they made the right call with Paltrow because actually at the time of this movie, her and Pitt were dating.
Okay,
I mean, you can tell, at least from my point of view, they have a chemistry. They work really well together.
Yeah, no, and yeah, just to say, I don't feel like she should be recast. I'm just, saying if there was a role there, that might be one of that could probably be recast. And I guess in my opinion, like I don't think I'd be like, oh no, that Gwyneth Paltrow, I don't look at them like, oh no, that was her role,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in terms of like the major cast members, I feel like it was perfect.
Yeah, and we discussed earlier, I mean, Pacino and Denzel were considered for this, but I don't think it's as good of a movie with those two.
Yeah. No, I agree.
The unsolved mysteries of the movie, and this is one of those things where I wish Robert Stack were alive. I would write him a letter asking him to like recite that category in his voice.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to get one of those celebrity like impersonators or like AI deep fake something. So someone can read that category. Yeah, someone could read that category in his voice. But the unsolved mysteries of the movie, these are questions that we would have like after the movie, like, something that makes you think. The only one that I have, and I think it's a pretty obvious one, like what happens to Mills and Somerset after the events of this movie?
Right.
I mean, do you think Somerset retires, or do you think he stays on?
For me, I feel like he retires. I feel like this was like, I feel like this is something his character would like want to get away from,
Really?
Because, he'd mentioned he wanted to stay on until he caught John Doe. Right. And I think, just the what happened, just the events of this movie, I feel like I like to think Somerset would have like that solidified his decision to retire.
See, I'm the opposite. I think he would have okay, I'm staying on because he failed. John Doe wins. He commits all the crimes. He's beaten the bad guys, and he failed David Mills. So I think for that he would stay, because like, okay, like I can't let this happen again as long as I'm breathing, or I can continue to do it. And you can obviously tell he's still a fantastic detective. He's a much better detective than David Mills is.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see what happened to Mills after that. Like,
well, what do you think happens to Mills?
I agree. I get the feeling it's not good, like this is a kind of thing that, if they were like to continue their story to see what happens, it seems like, and then given kind of like throughout the film, he's very, I feel like has a tendency to be apathetic. Not to the degree that it seems like everyone else in that world does, but it just seems like that having that kind of thing happen to you, and then in that world, I just feel like it's not a good thing, right? Not the kind of thing that would say, "Oh, I need to make you a better detective," right? I think it would just have really negative repercussions.
Yeah,
that's kind of how the feeling I get out of it.
I don't think he goes to jail, because I think like, given the circumstances, like the guy that cut your wife's head off, put it in a box, and took the time to have a courier bring it to a remote location would probably drive you to do the same thing. But I think I bet he becomes like a drunk, or he becomes like addicted to drugs. And I think I don't think he'll ever be a policeman again. I think like, you don't go to jail, but you can't be a cop anymore. And I think he becomes like a private eye. You know, like
Yeah.
one of those.
Not a good life.
Yeah, he probably lives in a shit apartment. He probably takes jobs to support his drinking or his drug habit, and he probably dies young because like he just really has nothing to live for. I mean, his wife was killed, you see throughout the movie, he obviously loves her. He didn't know that she was pregnant. So she's carrying his unborn. Like, yeah, I can't see how anyone would live even like a mediocre life if something like that happens. So I think he just he gets hooked on drugs. He becomes a drunk, or both. Does PI work because he's a decent detective. Yeah, but he's not a great one. He's not like Somerset. And then I think you found him. They'll probably find him when he's like 43, 44. He's probably drank himself to death or something. That's what I think happens.
Yeah. No, I think that line, just not a good outcome for him, unfortunately.
Yeah. I kind of curious to see or hear what you guys that are listening, what you think happens. Please let us know. Social media, shoot me an email, whatever. New category. We test drove this one a few weeks ago with Hard Target, but what is the most 1995 moment from this movie? Like, what's the moment in this movie? Like, okay, this movie is obviously made in the 90s.
That's a good question. Wow. Yeah. What do you have anything on top of your mind?
I do. I have it written down. It's in the car scene when John Doe's giving his monologue, and then Pitt basically tells him, like, you're not I forget how it goes, but he says, you're a movie of the week. You're a t-shirt at best. And if you remember, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, NBC, CBS, ABC, whenever there was a sensational event happen, like say the Menendez brothers, when they killed their parents, they're rushing to make a TV movie so they could show it on Monday night. Like Monday night, it's My Brother's Keeper, the story of Kyle and Lyle Menendez. They take
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I mean, they still do it to an extent. Like I know FX has those American Crime Story movies where, like, I know they did one with OJ, but they're like not like they're not rushing to make something.
Oh yeah, they're not so immediate.
Yeah, like as an example, like the Aaron Hernandez. Are you familiar with him? The tight end from the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Like they would have made a TV movie within a year of that happening if this were like the 80s or the 90s. And like they don't really do that anymore. So that was the thing that dated the movie to me, was like a movie of the week. Because I remember all the time you'd always see, whether it was the girl that fell down the well in Texas, or some sensational murder case, or some story that just grips the country in the newspapers, like they're making a movie about it. They don't do it anymore. My wife watched the movie with me, and she had said something about, like, even though this is the mid 90s, like Somerset's using a typewriter to type out a report.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And like when they're printing off the list of people that would have checked out books from regarding the 7 deadly sins, they have that, what's that printer paper called where it's like white and green and it has the perforated edges on the end, and it has that
matrix.
Yeah, that kind of printer.
Yeah.
That kind of too. But yeah, for me, it was like when he said the movie of the week, I'm like, yep, that's the winner for me, was that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just, I'll have to go back. You're mentioning that. I know there's a scene where they're at their desks, and it's, none of them have computers. They're in a whole, thing. And now that is something that looks odd now, because you're like, how are you getting work done?
Yeah, or like even when she calls him to invite Somerset over for dinner, there's like, that would have been a cell phone now. And it would have been a text message. It wouldn't have been a phone call.
Yeah. No doubt.
Another new category we've been test driving here lately. I really need to get like a restaurant to sponsor this. So just for the sake of getting someone to listen to this, we're going to call this one for this week the Bob Evans presents the hot takes off the skillet for like a hot take you have about this movie.
Yeah.
I kind of went into it earlier that this movie should have been nominated for Best Picture, at least Best Nominated. I think it has a strong chance to win. But my hot take is watching this today, I really think that if you were to rank the top 10 greatest movie villains of all time, I think Kevin Spacey's John Doe is definitely in the top 10, and I think he's closer to 5 than he is to 10.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Just because, like, in movies, it's not too often that the villain wins, and the villain wins in this movie. He ends up corrupting one of the heroes in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just such a cold and chilling character that, like, with no remorse at all, and he truly, truly believes what he's doing is the right thing.
He was willing to die. Yeah, that's one of the things that that always stuck to me with that. I was like, wow, like he recognized it wasn't like he was above it. He recognized that he was susceptible to those same sins.
Yep.
And recognized what he had to do. Yeah, it's really, totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of villains would be willing to sacrifice their own lives to
for
do that,
for their cause,
especially on principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just watching that today. I was like, fuck, he is a phenomenal villain, and like I don't know, like I wouldn't put him in the Darth Vader, Hans Gruber. Like to me, the Mount Rushmore has always been Darth Vader, Hans Gruber, Hannibal Lecter, and Uncle or Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory as the greatest movie villains of all time.
Yeah,
that old lazy bum. He's a villain just because he's a piece of shit to his family. But I John Doe is just, and I really think that he's probably closer to that top 5 than he is the bottom half of the top 10. Which is the fact that he doesn't get mentioned enough is kind of a crime. Because I mean, like a lot of people, like I know when they rank villains now, like especially with the, and I think this has a lot to do with like just comic book movies have kind of overtaken the movie industries. Like they're pretty much like most of the studios that do them, they depend on them, so they're kind of like in the cultural zeitgeist right now for the film industry. So they kind of other villains kind of get pushed to the side because like okay, is this person? They're not as good as Thanos. They're not as good as the Joker, which I would say Heath Ledger's Joker is in that 4th spot, not Grandpa Joe, but Grandpa Joe's definitely in the top 10. But yeah, I mean, like he's just, I think he's everything that personifies a villain, and I think he's fantastic as the villain. And
I think he probably doesn't come to mind for a lot of people because I think you mentioned he's 20 minutes of screen time, right? You focus more on his work than the actual character, right? So a lot of times people probably don't even think of, John Doe as like the person rather than just the results, right?
I think now with Kevin Spacey too, kind of like what he's done outside of like,
sure. Yeah,
it's probably kind of like, it's like with anybody, like he's been kind of canceled by society. So it kind of like, I've always been the person that I'm able to separate the person from the work. So like Mel Gibson, like I'll still watch Lethal Weapon, even though I think Mel Gibson's not a very good human being.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to stop me from watching Lethal Weapon or The Patriot or.
Yeah,
it'll stop me from watching Braveheart, but I'm not a big fan of Braveheart. But you know what I mean? Like, and same with Kevin Spacey. Like I'll watch like The Usual Suspects. I mean, I watched Se7en today, or yesterday. I'll watch his stuff. That doesn't mean that the performance isn't good because he is an animal essentially in human form.
Sure.
So, and I think that has a lot to do with it too. I think that kind of anything he's done gets overshadowed by that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's definitely true.
Well, do you have any hot takes? Bob Evans is listening.
What'd you say?
Bob Evans is listening. Maybe you get a sunrise skillet or whatever the fuck their breakfast stuff's called.
Let me know when Denny's is sponsoring. I'll have.
Dude, Denny's or if Waffle House jumped on board, they sent me a letter like, "Listen, we want in. We'll sponsor that. Like, we'll, if you call it like the smothered and covered hot take award, I would feel like."
Yeah.
Yep. I'll bump it to the fucking top of the show.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll even change the name of the show to Waffle House Presents the Couch Potato Podcast. I would just.
Well, it'd be better if they put some episodes or wrote a song for you and on their jukebox. Their Waffle House themed jukebox. They had one for you.
They'll just have the stock song that I've got from my Rode Procaster.
Yeah.
You just hit like A7 and it plays that song for like 30 seconds.
Oh yeah.
But no hot takes?
No, man. I think I'd like yours.
All right, good deal. Last category that we have is the Hall of Fame. I come up with have some categories or particular things about the movie. If they were making a Hall of Fame, like a wing of a movie Hall of Fame, would this particular movie go into it? So have a few here. Would this be a Hall of Fame contender for movies that contain a lot of rain?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I can't think.
I think this and Blade Runner.
I think I can't remember where I heard it, but somebody was critiquing this film and made it the joke that David Fincher must have investing a lot of money in companies that make rainmaking machines. He must hold a lot of stock in companies that make rainmaking machines.
Well, good for him, man. I would have fucking done the same thing. What about Brad Pitt hairstyles?
Oh, this is a good.
Because I'm going to say yes, and I'm only saying yes because I remember after this movie came out, I tried for a good 5 or 6 months to get that same hairstyle, and I could never quite get it right.
I remember wanting to emulate that look.
Yeah, the messed up spiky hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could never get it like his, and it fucking frustrated me to no end in the morning. Like, fuck. And then it turns out, like, later on when I got older, it's like, oh, you just throw some stuff in your hair before you go to bed and just wake up like that, and it's fine. But now I can't even fucking do it, which makes me even more angry.
Well, step one to having Brad Pitt like hair is step one, be Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Step two, also be Brad Pitt.
If you can't meet step one, then just stop.
Yeah. Stop now. What about twist endings? Or let me rephrase that. Twisted movies.
Yeah.
Because like there's some movies that have incredible twists that are not in the end of the movie. So it's movie twist.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one where I think for me it's a more memorable one. In terms of like when he turns himself in, right, and then that whole sequence starts for me, and then you kind of see how the main characters, or at least one of them, Brad Pitt, is brought into it. That unexpectedly. I think for me that would put it in the top for me.
Mm. Yeah, I would say I think for me it's probably this movie, The Sixth Sense.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Which I watched that not too long ago, and outside of the twist, it's still a surprisingly good movie. It really is. Yeah. It just, I think like some of it gets a little spoiled because you kind of know what happens now. And you know what? I hate those fucking people that say like, "Oh, I figured it out in the first 5 minutes." Like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't, you fucker. You're such a liar.
I can't stand like talking to people like that in movies. Like, oh, I knew it was 15 minutes in the movie he was dead. Like, no, you didn't. Shut up, dude. But yeah, I think this one has to be in the conversation as well. I think Kevin Spacey revealed as Kaiser Soze has to be it too. And then I don't know, man. I think it's between The Prestige and then Fight Club, where you find out that Tyler Durden is just a figment of his imagination. Like that caught me completely off guard too. So, but
The Prestige, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that revelation on that one's a good one too. I forgot about that.
I'll tell you what, I will bring you on when we do an episode, and I just wrote it down, the greatest movie twist.
That would be a fun one.
Yeah. Because I'm just going down like this list now, and scratch that. Primal Fear. That twist that knocks my fucking socks off. Have you ever seen Primal Fear?
I don't think I'm familiar with that. I'm excited now that I have something to look up here.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you, or you just want to watch the movie? I recommend watching it. I'm not a big Richard Gere fan, but it's really good.
Trying to see. Yeah, I don't know. Oh,
it's Richard Gere and Edward Norton.
I'm familiar with this movie, but I don't think I'm not enough to be familiar with the twist you're talking about. So I am going to watch this.
Yeah, go watch it. Text me, let me know what you think. It'll fucking knock your socks off. Trust me. All right, the last one here, and my fucking microphone is blocking my phone, so I can't even look at. Okay, two more. I've got opening credit sequences.
Oh yeah. This is I think I mentioned this earlier. I'm one of the first movies I can remember that had an opening sequence like that. Outside of I remember like Bond movies always having, so I was familiar with those, right? But one like this, to where it's actually setting the tone, like you're getting almost like this FPV view of this character, and I think this is definitely for me would be going in the Hall of Fame there.
Yeah, I think like I know, like I can't really come up with like another one that's like a peak one, but I really dig Casino Royale. Like I really like the opening sequence to that, where you get Chris Cornell's "You Know My Name" and it's doing the poker stuff with Bond. I thought that was really cool too, and then even Zombieland, where it's playing For Whom the Bell Tolls, where they're just zombies are just wiping out people. Those are a couple of personal favorites of mine. All right, the last one: uncredited performances in movies.
Yeah, this is definitely a top one. Yeah,
I think it's the best one.
Yeah.
Because I was just going through a list there. Like I said, like Matt Damon and Interstellar would be another good one. But yeah, I think in terms of like uncredited, this one is like, this is the alpha. Like this is the one that like you have to top.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of some other good ones. But
so it's so interesting. I didn't realize that until you said that. It makes so much sense that he wouldn't be credited in that. Yeah, like it would have thrown everything way off. That's really good.
Well, usually when I find out an actor is in a movie and it's uncredited, it's because they don't like the movie, like they see the final cut, like I want nothing to do with this. Or in the case of The Firm, like the Tom Cruise movie from the early 90s, Gene Hackman goes uncredited in that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it had something to do with he wanted to be billed on the same line as Tom Cruise. He wanted it to be Tom Cruise, Gene Hackman, The Firm, which I love. I'm a huge Gene Hackman fan, but there's no fucking way. Like Tom Cruise is like, in the last 50 years, there's probably maybe a handful of movie stars that are like on that level, and Gene Hackman's not one of them.
Right.
So he went uncredited in The Firm. And I thought it had something to do with like a money dispute or something like that. But no, it was like when I was researching this, it was purely intentional to not ruin the surprise of who John Doe was. And just.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting when you have a script to where that becomes necessary, you know, like I feel like that's a unique script where you have to, detail like that would reveal so much about it, right? Yeah, that's so cool.
Well, you can't even do that anymore. Like with the internet, the way it is, like there's no way you can pull that off anymore because somebody would leak something like, oh, like the last really good uncredited performance that I could think of off the top of my head was speaking of Tom Cruise, was him as Les Goldman in Tropic Thunder. He's uncredited in that, but I think that was also kind of intentional.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no way you can. I think even when that movie came out, the internet kind of spoiled it ahead of time. I mean, you kind of know it's Tom Cruise, but not knowing, like I think my wife didn't know that was Tom Cruise at first till she kind of like took a good look at it when we seen it in theaters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the internet spoiled Tom Cruise in that.
Yeah.
There's no way you can get away with it now.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone, yeah. It's so interesting how things get spoiled now, either accidentally or just, gosh, it's so easy. You just see cast members going on set, right? Just getting a picture, and then you get, it's pretty easy to figure out what they're working on sometimes.
Or if Tom Holland is in the neighborhood, Tom Holland will spoil it too.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, dude, that's all I've got today. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
Go see Se7en. If you haven't watched it, still audience, go see it. It's fantastic. It's just a great movie.
Yeah. Rent it. Yeah. Buy it. Stream it on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus, awesome streaming service. Can't recommend it enough. They've gotten a lot better with their catalog. I know I used to complain all the time about their lack of their big hits, but they seem to have been on a roll lately. So Paramount Plus gets the Couch Brotato Podcast stamp of approval. Go check out Se7en now. And be sure to check us out each and every week. We drop new episodes. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you like what you heard today, please support the show by giving us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. I will say it once again. I know I need to get better at TikTok. So we'll eventually be on TikTok. We'll release that information on there at some point. The links are in the show description. Send us an email. Let us know what your thoughts. If you got any show ideas that sound really cool. If you want to let me know how much this show sucks, how awesome it is, I want to hear it. Shoot us an email. That's also in the show description. So until next week, we will talk to you guys later.